tell us the story about the pending world record bluefin, because if anybody that's been here in San Diego, we know where the big boys are, and I just don't have the bank account right now to go 120 miles from here at the time and go chase these guys. So can you give us like the play-by-play on how about this, the story about the fish?
Yeah, sure. So we had decided to go out, and it was supposed to be a epic weather day. So my husband is a charter captain, and he went out the day prior, and they saw a fish at 55 miles. So we thought it would be a great idea to go out, because that didn't sound that far for the big boys. And then we ended up getting there, and they weren't there. And then we kept going. And then we kept going. And we started to see a little fish puddle around, nothing too big. And we were running into some boats, probably about 80 miles away. And at this point, we're thinking, man, we're real far away. And then we stumbled upon a bunch of foaming fish. And it was really neat. I love going out and seeing all of those fish foam around. And it was really National Geographic that day. We were seeing whales circled by football fields of fish. And it was crazy, but it was just so hard to get on them because they were very boat shy. And when we did get to see them in the water, I was diving along with one of our friends, Derek Rush, and we would see one or two fish at a time. And we're just like, where are all the fish? We see a football field of fish, and we dive down and we see one or two. And that was pretty much the theme of the day. And finally, we kept driving, and we got Derek on a fish. It was great. He shot his personal best that day. He got a 170 pounder. And so then I shot about a 50 pounder, and we were 106 miles away from where we launched. And we're just like, we got to go home. We got to go home. It's getting late. I have work tomorrow. We got to clean up this fish. And I thought I'd stay in my suit until the fat lady sung. And about 5-10 miles on the way back home, my husband, Matty, spots a breezer, and we hadn't seen breezers all day long. They were all foaming. They were all moving fast. And we get on this breezer, and of course they're boat shy, so they wouldn't let us get in front of it. And so I had to slide off the boat, and I just started kicking towards them. And I thought they were moving away from me, but they ended up moving away, and then they came back towards me, and all of a sudden I hear my husband yell, "Dive." And so I dove down, and the viz is pretty terrible that day. And I get down there, honestly not too deep. I started seeing the fish about 30 feet, and I leveled off. I saw a couple, and they were moving much slower than the ones earlier that day. And I was tracking one, and I almost clicked off a shot. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw another one that was just, it seemed like it was dead stopped in the water, like just much bigger than the other ones around it. It was really frightening, honestly, how big it was compared to the rest of them. And I just turned my gun and I shot that thing, and I was like, all right, there is the one. It was, easy shot relatively. And, it went down, didn't take the float down, and I surfaced, and the float just kind of didn't even move. It seemed like the fish almost fell off at one point because the float just fell over. And so I get to the float, and I'm like, oh gosh, it probably ripped off. And I started pulling it up, and I thought, yeah, it's still here. And I pulled it up to about 30 feet of bungee plus the shooting line left, and that fish just lit up like hell, and it was stalemate. I was holding on with all my deer strength, and it took about 20 minutes for it to kind of settle down a little bit. And I finally got to the shooting line, and I go to the boat, grab my other gun and loaded it. I go down, and I shoot it in the gills. I'm like, all right, got this thing. And pull up the fish, and I'm like, holy cow, this thing's huge. It was just, I knew it was my biggest one, and I just didn't realize it was so big just because I didn't really think it fought as hard as a big one should fight. And so I pull it up, and I brain him, and I'm just holding this fish next to me, and I'm just like, geez, this thing is just a cow. I had in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is huge. It's taller than me for sure. And very, very heavy, being dead weight in the water. I couldn't even barely swim with it. So got it to the boat, had Derek hop in the water with his underwater camera and be able to take some awesome shots of the fish with me in the water and everything, and got him on the gaff and pulled him in. And there it is.
Okay, so when you say he lit up, now I imagine did you have it, were you using a clinch? Or were
Yes.
you, okay. So he had tension when he lit up and took off?
He lit up, and I was able to hold the clinch right there, but I could not get him any closer to me, and I really didn't want to let him go back down, because when you let him just fool around down there, that's a recipe for tearing off and, sharks coming and all, not a good thing. And then you have to work again to hold him back up there. So I had in my mind, I had to keep him up there.